Yeah, I think it does seem a little high. I mean, I think at
Low.
the draft, well, however you want to talk about it. Yeah, right. If Porzingis went 2 and Russell went third, then the Sixers I'm pretty sure would have taken Russell over Okafor. I think the Knicks would have taken Okafor at the draft. Now, I don't know. I don't know how much it has changed. I guess it's sort of a popular thing to point. Let's face it. He's not the hardest working guy at the defensive end of the court. The court stuff, I guess, concern people and stuff like that. But he's a pretty talented guy, 12 feet and in, offensively, and scores pretty well, and has an array of moves and stuff. It's funny, he doesn't look slow on offense, but he looks slow on defense. Which I never understood that. Like Lou Williams nobody could stop him, but he couldn't stop any of the other end. I was like, well, if you're fast at one end, and I'm not saying Okafor's fast, but my point is, he's not as slow, I think, as he looks on defense. I don't know why there's a sort of a disconnect there, and quite a few players that happens with, but. Yeah, I think that it's kind of an easy thing to sort of pile on, and you're right. Some players have played very well, in the draft.
Yeah,
I don't think he would have slipped that far.
Been a good draft class so far. There's a lot of good players. Devin Booker has been great. I mean, a guy, Miles Turner, I think he's exceeded expectations. You saw a couple guys you didn't know a lot about who have really panned out. So it has been a good draft class, Okafor included. And you wrote the other day, Tom, that you look at Jahlil Okafor and Nerlens Noel. They're the two big names. Are those guys that you think the Sixers are listening about or hanging up the phone on?
No, I think, Sam Hinkie has always been a guy who will consider every possibility. And I think Jerry Colangelo traded Larry Nance, when he was out there, and that was the star. But he got a draft pick that became Dan Marley, and he got Kevin Johnson. So he got two of the core guys, that helped him go to the 93 finals. So I think you have to listen to anybody and everybody. You just don't know. The difference this year, though, is, with the cap going up so much, like half the league is projected to have pretty good cap space this summer, whereas typically, it's 5 teams or less. But with the cap jumping, estimated about 20, going up about 20 million, that takes a lot of teams that are in, over the cap, and maybe have some contracts that expire. Now all of a sudden they have money, that they can spend on free agency or make an uneven trade or whatever. So, I think they're both listening, and I would think it's less likely there's a big deal. They made significant deals each of the last 2 years. But I wouldn't be stunned if they conclude that these two guys can't make it work, regardless of what happens with Embiid. I wouldn't be stunned. I would say 25% chance, off the top of my head. I mean, I don't think it's like 50-50, but I do think that if the right deal strikes, I don't think Colangelo and Hinkie would hesitate.
What about the Laker pick? Would they be willing, is that a pick that if for the right deal, do you think they're willing to move the Laker pick? And is that an attractive pick to somebody else that would cave in? Yeah, I mean, it is. Even if the Lakers stay second and finish second, I did the math, there's still a 44.2% chance that pick is number 4 or number 5. It's about 34% that it'd be number 4 and 10% it's number 5. So you have just under a 50-50 shot if they stay at number 2 that pick is conveying this year, and the odds are if it does convey, it would be number 4, which would mean that two teams would have to jump past them into the top 3. So that's not a bad, now if somebody definitely wants a player this year, you're rolling the dice there a little bit. As I said, it's 44.2%. But I think and it's top 3 protected next year, and then it becomes unprotected in 18. So, I think if the team is willing to, what's it going to, what else is going to be involved? I mean, the thing was in the past, the Sixers could be a team and take a player's salary back to help 2 other teams make a deal under the cap and then get draft picks or whatever. But that's less likely to happen this year, as I said, with the cap going up and the value of expiring contracts is decreasing because of that fact. Tom Moore, Calkins Media, covers the Sixers. Deadline Thursday. They have their first-round pick, the Lakers pick, which some people, Tom, think that it's better if it doesn't convey this year that it waited till next year because next year's draft is supposed to be very deep and very strong. I guess beggars can't be choosers when you're in their position. But they also have the Oklahoma City and Miami picks. Are those attractive pieces to other teams or better for the Sixers to hold on to until draft night?
Well, here's the thing: the Oklahoma City, that's looking like 26 or 27. They're one of the better teams in the league. But if you look, with Chris Bosh news, the possibility of they're talking about possibility of blood clots or whatever, which sidelined him, for a good portion of the season last year. They're a playoff team right now. That's top 10 protected. So, I hope he's fine. I hope he can play. But the last time I read earlier today, there was some uncertainty about the situation. If that turns out to be number 12, if they make the playoffs, that's probably number 15 or 16, which isn't bad. But if they miss the playoffs and, that ends up being number 11 or number 12, that's in the lottery. And, maybe if you're lucky and the Laker pick conveys you, even if you don't get number, let's say you end up with 2, 4, and 12. Well, you might be able to do something there, not just necessarily for the draft this year, but get a player in return. Or if you think the draft's better next year, get a pick, project to be a high pick next year. Oklahoma City, I don't think that they're going to draft. If they get 4, I would be surprised if they draft 4 guys. I would think, or if they do, the 27th guy might be a Euro stash, who plays overseas for a year or two, get some seasoning and so on. But I could see him trading down. I could see him combining 2 picks. You could combine, the Heat and the Thunder picks possibly, move up a little bit or something like that. So there are a lot of possibilities, a lot of things that could happen, depending what happens with the lottery in mid-May.
Well, Tom, this weekend, Jerry Colangelo, that they're going to be adding more basketball minds. Many people kind of point that the end is like the walls are closing in on Henke. Do you read the tea leaves and feel the same way? Or, is this another situation where, like, Henke's the necessary evil that whether they like him or not, they must keep him around?
Yeah, I don't know. I would think I would be surprised if he's – I would think he's still here through the draft. I'm just not – I don't know. It's hard to read, like by the training camp, the end of September. I'm not as sure, that he would be there. It's possible the other guy they're talking about is more of a – an assistant or, maybe a player personnel guy or something like that, not necessarily a general manager, somebody to replace, Sam Hinkie. It's really hard to tell. You kind of hear things and see things and you think one thing and then, not sure. But, I think it's fair to say that.
Do people think that he has done a good job with the personnel? Because I think a lot of people just look at him as this guy who has stockpiled and stashed picks and everything has been an asset trade. But do people give him credit for drafting, that the talent that he has acquired, or do people not value him as a basketball mind?
Well, he has a plan and he stuck to it. You certainly can say that, but to me, the whole thing still hinges on Embiid. If he's able to be healthy and by the All-Star break next year, let's say playing 30 minutes a game or whatever, and playing like they think he can, and like he seems to have the ability to. I think that will help determine, the legacy. This is what it's been gearing toward. They won 19 games and they won 18 games. They only ended up the 3rd pick each year. So I guess this year it was, well, we're going to do everything we can, to get the top pick. And if they wouldn't have added Ish Smith, they could be sitting here at 4 wins or something like that now. But the last 10 years, only one team with the worst record has gotten the top pick. There are no guarantees. You have a 25% chance. The next team has a 19.9% chance, and on down the line, through 14. So, this is kind of what it's gearing up. This to me, this is the summer that will determine. It's not realistic to say the Sixers are going to sign Kevin Durant or, to me, any free agent, let's say over 27. You might look at, undervalued guys or guys younger, like he's more from the Hawks. He's a left-handed shooting 3. He's had a really good year, good defender. He's going to probably make some money in the open market, but he's young, and that's what you need to look at is younger guys. As I said, 26, 27 or younger. And, there are some guys out there that they could, consider and have a chance to, as opposed to the big-name guys. Again, I don't know why they would come here because they want to win now. They don't want to wait, 2 years or whatever, to be a winner.
I guess,
so
Tom,
this will determine the legacy.
Yeah, and is it fair to say that the Sixers are nowhere close to the situation they're in if a basketball mind or an old-school basketball guy is running this place?
Yeah, they probably would have kept Drew Holiday, kept Thaddeus Young, maybe tried to sign a guy like Al Jefferson, been 6th, 7th, 8th, in the conference, made the playoffs, maybe get lucky like they did when Rose and Noah got hurt at the 8th seed and they won a round, then lost to Celtics in 7 games, 4 years ago, whatever that is. But, yeah, I don't think it would have been this drastic blowing it up. But on the other hand, I don't think I've ever seen a rebuild where the team is worse in the third year than in the first and second year. But it's a means to an end. But
yeah. It's funny.
This year.
Tom, we talk about this 3-year tanking or, whatever you want to call it. That first year, you could almost surmise that Henke tried to give Turner, Thaddeus Young, Spencer Hall a chance to prove that they were good enough, and they were 15-30 when he said, all right, I gave you long enough. This is it. We're pulling the plug on this thing. We're going to go my way now.
Well, I think that was the plan, though, because I think the plan was to do that, to acquire, and that's what, you got a first-round pick in the summer when you traded Thad Young, and you got second-round picks for Turner and Hawes, and you took on some salaries that helped you get other picks. They're paying $12 million to $12 million and $11 million. $12 million to JaVale McGee, and $11 million to Wallace, and they're not on the team. But that enabled them to get that was the Oklahoma City pick, I believe, was JaVale McGee, and Gerald Wallace helped them get other assets, the option to flip-flop, I believe, picks with the Kings this year and next year. You have to figure that in, too. They have the Kings' chances to get in the top 3 with the lottery, too. So if the Kings somehow beat the odds and jump from, number 7 to number 1, the Sixers would get that pick instead. So it's not a huge chance, but that's another, that's something else that needs to be factored into the equation.
There's a lot of things that will factor into this equation. As you mentioned, this is kind of the legacy summer for this whole situation because I think if they're sitting at 8-45, if we talk in 2017, there's going to be a lot of pissed-off fans out there.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's what I mean. They have to start making a jump. Even if they're young, they have to start building with a core group. You look this year, who really is core guys that you definitely want to keep, and probably 2 of the big men if Embiid's healthy, but I don't know that necessarily will work with all 3. But you have the influx of Saric coming. If Embiid's healthy, you have the picks, maybe a trade, where you can add another young guy, that you can't address in the draft or somebody that you like. So, the roster could be very different, but you need to start getting a core group of 8-9 guys and start moving things forward, and that is the plan.
And your key comment earlier was this a lot rides on Embiid, and when Saric, if he decides to come over too, I think, if they were waiting on a different, an Elfrid Payton who they drafted or, somebody else, I don't think the excitement's there as much. But because it's Embiid and it's Saric, who's actually been playing, just not here, I think there is a lot more excitement waiting for those 2 players, which could make this thing move in a lot quicker direction. So Thursday's the day. Could this be the deadline when the Sixers acquire talent instead of assets or virtually nothing, Tom? It sounds like most likely nothing seems to be the answer.
Well, I would say as you sit here now, that there's a chance that, maybe a minor deal or something like that, a lesser player or, swapping a contract for a contract, or maybe a guy that isn't performing well for you, that for a guy who isn't performing well for another team. But I don't think you sit here and say, you can be confidently say, well, they're going to trade one of these 2 guys, because they could wait to the draft if they don't get what they want. And also by the draft, you should have a better idea. Like last year at the draft, they knew Embiid needed more surgery, was probably going to miss the second year. And I still think whatever Hinkie, if he wanted to take Porzingis, he really couldn't do it last year because he didn't know if he was replacing Embiid or complementing him. He may have needed to replace him. So when Okafor's there, he drops in your lap. You take him. Even though Porzingis would be an ideal complement to Embiid, you don't know what the status is. So, yeah, I would say odds are not a big trade, but if the right one presents itself, I don't think either guy would hesitate to do it.
All right,
make the Sixers better.
Yeah, Tom Moore. T. Moore, 76ers. The Sixers at the deadline, a very interesting year, and we will see if they do something Thursday. But this offseason will really be where all eyes will be on Sam Hinkie, Jerry Colangelo, and company. Tom, always a pleasure, pal. We'll catch up with you soon.
Sounds good, Mike. Thanks.